Hi everyone on YouTube, Goku here. There's something I forgot that I'm going to put at the beginning of this video. I wanted to mention that the 3 EVGA 670 GTX for the wins, when you overclock them, they have almost the same performance as 3 stock reference 680 GTX. The major thing I wanted to mention was Far Cry 3 does not have an in-game benchmark. So later in this video, when I show you my benchmarking procedures and the steps that I did for the game to benchmark it, I used Fraps to record the frames per second. You know, it has like an program built into Fraps that will record your frames per second, the min, the average, and the maximum frames per second. And I use that to record it. So Far Cry 3 doesn't have an in-game benchmark. I just wanted to mention that. Some games will have really good in-game benchmarks like Dirt 2, Dirt 3, Metro 23, Hitman Absolution. They have really good benchmarks built into the game, but Far Cry 3 does not. So that's something I just wanted to mention, and hope you understand that this is my benchmarking procedure. You can have your own benchmarking procedure, but if you want to compare my results with everybody else's results, you'd probably have to follow the steps I did in this video to a T to get sort of the same frames per second. So thank you. Hi everyone on YouTube, this is Goku here. I had one of my subscribers wanted me asked to do a Far Cry 3 benchmark for him. So this is with the 3 EVGA 670 GTX for the wins. You gotta keep in mind the bottom graphics card is overclocked to 670 for the win speed. And I'll show you some of the option settings that I have in here. If we go to video right here, it will say 1920 by 1200 resolution. Window mode is full screen. Vertical sync, which normally locks the refresh rate to the refresh rate of your monitor. So let's say you have a 60 hertz monitor, it'll lock it to like 60 frames per second normally in your game. I have that turned off, so you get the highest frames per second you can. GPU max buffered frames, widescreen letterbox. DirectX is showing DirectX 11. MSAA anti-aliasing is 8x, so it's the highest you can have in the game. Alpha coverage is an advanced. This one right here, I was doing some research about it. I think for Nvidia graphics cards, HDAO is the highest setting you can have in here. You can see there's different ones. There's HBAO, SSAO, which is more for ATI video cards. So HDAO is the best for Nvidia that I was seeing. It's one of the most demanding, and it makes the games look a lot better. It's kind of confusing because there's so many of these different texture filtering that they have in these different games. So we'll go to video quality, playing on ultra setting, high textures, ambient lighting is set to high, shadows is set to ultra, post FX is set to ultra, geometry is set to ultra, vegetation's on very high, terrain's on high, water's on high, and environment's high. So it's pretty much the highest settings you can have in Far Cry 3. And I'll show you guys exactly what I'm doing for my benchmark. So I pretty much just started off in the game, and I'm just waiting for it to load right now. Okay, so we're right here at the beginning of the game where I started off. He wants us to find a boar that's in the game. Now there's some things I wanted to mention before I start off the benchmark. This is normally what I do for my benchmark run. I'll just run through this area on this mission and record it with Fraps, where it will show my minimum, my average, and my max frames per second. You can see the frames per second in the top left hand corner. That is MSI Afterburner that I'm using to record this gameplay footage, and it shows everything. It shows my GPU temperatures of all 3 cards. It shows the GPU usage percentage, that's right next to temperature, and it shows my core clock. So it's, if you see right up there at the top where it hit 1189 megahertz, that's normally I'll get 1189 or 1176 megahertz on all 3 cards, you know, if it's scaling pretty well. One thing I wanted to point out, I had some problems recording this. I tried doing Nvidia 314.22 WHQL drivers, and they would not work for recording. It would crash, and it would open up a Windows command prompt saying CC plus error. So I had to downgrade to Nvidia 314.07 WHQL drivers. So that's the drivers I'm using for this. They're older, so 314.07 instead of... I do get a little bit more performance with the 314.22 22 WHQL drivers. So you got to keep that in mind. Those drivers are a lot better, but it sucks for MSI Afterburner when you're trying to record your gameplays. The frames per second, you got to keep in mind I'm recording right now. Without recording, I'm usually getting about 75 to 85 frames per second average. So right now, we're going to look at the ground. You can see right here it's showing about, it's jumping around, but it's usually showing about 72 frames per second, 75. You see it's hitting 80 frames per second right there. It's just jumping around. And look at the sky right now. It's showing about 52, 53. It's a lot higher. It's normally, with 3 EVGA 670 GTX for the wins, 75 to 85 frames per second average normally in here. One thing I want to point out with this, I have my Core i7 2600K overclocked to 4.8 gigahertz to try to remove any CPU bottlenecks. So we're going to get in the car right now, and this is normally what I would do for my benchmark run. I would just try to drive to where this bore is. Now if you look at my GPU percentages, the SLI scaling's not that good in this game. It's not really supporting 3-way SLI all the way. A game that supports 3-way SLI would be like Metro 2033, or Crysis 3 sometimes supports it really good, or Hitman Absolution definitely supports the 3-way SLI really well, and that will show 97 to 99% GPU usage on all 3 graphics cards. So this is pretty much what I do on my benchmark run. I just drive through here, and I will show a frap screenshot, while what my frames per second is not recording. My frames per second would normally be about 15 to 20 frames per second higher than what I'm getting now. With 2 EVGA 670 GTX for the wins, I'm getting about 60 to 62 frames per second average. With 3 cards, I'm getting 75 to 85 frames per second. So the third graphics card's not fully utilized.
And animals. Which ones?
Okay, so I'm going to get out right now. This is normally what I do. I just drive to there. This game does have some glitches. I'll show you one right now. Like I said with the Crysis 3, they had a bug glitch where it wasn't showing up right. See, watch when I shoot my gun. Watch the frames per second. Now, that's not that demanding. I'm just shooting my gun off, but for some reason it dropped to 35 frames per second, which is not normal. Oh, and something else I wanted to mention. This is Far Cry 3 version 1.01. This is the cracked pirate version. It's not updated to the latest patch. So that's another thing you got to keep in mind. Maybe if you had new patches and better drivers, maybe you get 3-way SLI support where it would show a lot more, but on this it's not so much. So right now I got to get these leaves right here, and I'm looking on my radar. There's like a red leaf over here. That golden beehive. The GPU usage isn't that demanding. As you can see, it's not really crazy. I'm not getting 1,353 megabytes of VRAM, so it's not that intense. I've seen higher. So now I got to get the green light. You can see I'm in the water. Now look at my GPU temperature on the top graphics card. I have it on auto fan speed setting right now. I put the second EVGA 680 backplate back on the card to make it a little bit quieter, and that affected my temperatures and made it about 2 to 3 Celsius higher with adding the second EVGA backplate. So there's a boar. I got to kill him and get a skin. Yay! I got him.
All right. You can do this. I've got you.
This part's pretty gross. Oh! So my benchmarks are about the same. I try to run them the same. See, there's a green leaf. This game, you can really tell the scaling is not all the way there. I'm not getting full scaling. Like, there's no reason why my frame... I know I'm recording right now, but there's no reason why my frames per second should drop this low. Because even in Metro 2033, I'm getting about 90 to 100 frames per second average with the 3 graphics cards. And I mean, this game's... The textures don't look that good compared to other games. Like, even to me, even though Battlefield 3 is an older game, some of their textures in the game look a lot better and it looks more demanding, but that game scales a lot better. But that game doesn't support 3-way SLI. So So I guess I gotta look for another boar skin, if I could find another one. And as this one, as you can tell, the third EVGA 670, the small PCB reference card, is overclocked to 670 for the wind speed. So you can see how it's going to 1150, 1137 megahertz. Normally, if I get a game that scales really well, I'll get 1176 megahertz on all three graphics cards. And right now I'm just looking for another board if I could find them. So right now we'll just look in the water. My benchmark runs pretty much just this level when I'm playing right now. You can see some weird anomalies where if I look to the right, you can see textures are like reappearing and appearing out of thin air. That's kind of weird about this game. Now, I don't think I'm running into a CPU bottleneck at this because I got my 2600K at 4.8 gigahertz. I think I'm running into an Nvidia scaling issue where the third graphics card is not fully utilized. And I had this same problem with users who had EVGA or GTX 690s, the dual GPU card. They weren't fully utilized all the way, so I was actually... There he is. They weren't getting the full performance of their graphics card solutions. And pretty much that's what I'll do. I'll run around, complete this, and then I'll try driving back. See, I'm getting about 60 frames per second average while recording right now in the vehicle, 56. It's telling me to open the map right now. So yeah, me just driving around, it's not too bad. You can see 60 frames per second. Let me try driving to this location, see what it is. It's very smooth. The only part that lags is when you're getting to, the only part that really lags is when you're shooting your gun for some reason. It's like a glitch in the game. Let's see. Okay, if you see my frames per second is 66 right there, 62. And you can see the frames per second's not steady. It's jumping all over the place. You can see, like, it should be steady. It should be like 60, 62 frames per second average. It shouldn't be jumping around. And that's a scaling problem. It's just not working correctly. So we're going to fast travel to this area right now. Okay, so we're inside the town area right now. This is a pretty demanding part of the game. As you can see, the frames per second is pretty steady. With like I said before, 2 EVGA 670 GTX for the wins without recording is about 60-62 frames per second average. Without recording with 3 EVGA 670 GTX for the wins, you're getting about 75 to 85 frames per second, and it does jump up to 90 frames per second sometimes, you know, depending on where you are in the map. I mean, it's not too crazy. You can see there's like a little bit of micro stutter and lag. We can see I'm walking right slow. It's just the drivers. I think that, like a lot of people are saying, this game's an AMD optimized game. So, I mean, it's almost like Nvidia gave up on this game because they didn't update the drivers. There should be more Far Cry 3 drivers for this. So right now we're going to play this mission and see.
I've got the plants and animals.
Good. Then bend nature to your will. I will teach you. Now use the plants you found to craft 2 syringes. Good, Jason. You may even find more powerful plants out in the woods, if you are lucky. Now, use the skins of the animals you killed to enlarge what you can carry. Crafting will allow you to carry more weapons. money,
And you can see,
loot,
if you look at the top
and
left-hand corner, my
syringes.
GPU
Yes.
temperatures are
One last
going
thing,
insane. They're going to
the tower
93,
you're on.
94.
It is a
I have
sign
the
that
auto
you are
fan
special,
speed setting right now.
that you have the soul of a warrior.
And I want to keep the graphics cards
progressed along
quiet.
the
I
path.
don't want them super loud.
me
I don't
show
care
you
if
how
the
to add to
temperature's,
them.
you know, super
With
hot
each
like that,
tattoo,
because the graphics
a
cards
skill
are
is
made to
mastered.
handle, I
You
think
can
it's like
choose
up
to
to
learn
105
skills in
Celsius
3 different
degrees.
areas. Now,
And I have a
I will
3-year
teach you the
warranty
takedown.
on all 3 graphics cards. So if something happens on all of them, I can, you know, return them, you know, if one
Now-
dies or whatever. But
now
the
I will
temperature's
teach you
not
the
too bad.
takedown. Now I will teach you the takedown.
Oh, this guy's not showing me the takedown.
It is done. As
There
you
we
become
go.
stronger, with each new skill you learn, the tattoo will grow. Choose another. You have done well, Jason.
You
The
see in this
tattoo.
cutscene, it's not too bad. Yeah, you can see on his beard, they had some flickering.
Hey, Felipe, we are driving to the outpost near Amanachi. We have one of the Americans. Come, have some fun.
What the hell? Lisa!
Oh, shit.
We have to get her back.
Come, follow.
Okay, so we're gonna save this guy right now. Come on.
What's this outpost they've taken Lisa to?
The outposts are strongholds found throughout Rook Island. Boss's pirates hold them to control.
But yeah, you gotta
the
keep in mind,
surrounding
I am recording with MSI Afterburner,
heading
so
into a
your
fight.
frames per second would be a
Yes,
lot higher than
a
this
worthwhile
normally.
one. Rescuing your friend will kill 2 pigs.
Oh, you look
with
at
one
the
shot.
memory usage,
We are at war with
1.5 gigabytes of
Taking
VRAM.
outposts from the pirates is key to reclaiming the island.
So the game, it's not super demanding. Like Metro 2033 is it's pretty optimized for 3 GPUs, and I noticed with that game it uses high
As a warrior.
megabytes of VRAM. It uses almost, you know, 1900 to 2000 megabytes of VRAM at 1920 by 1200 resolution. This game is barely even using the 1500 megabytes of VRAM, so
Look, I appreciate your help, but I just want to save Lisa and my friends. My brother.
This is the only way to get them back alive.
that's
You
one
escaped
thing
the slave camp.
I have
You
to
survived.
stress to people
It
is
is time to fight.
if
We
you-
are all equal, Jason.
I like
Difference
3-way
lies in
SLI.
both
It's a
of
good
them.
solution for me because I like to benchmark.
The difference.
But I knew what I was getting
Alright,
into when I bought the
let's do this.
solution. Not
Like
all
you.
games support
I
3-way
was once a
SLI,
stranger here.
and that's
You are
something you
not
guys gotta
alone,
keep
my
in mind.
We will wait for
Is
you
not
to
all
begin
games
the
are going to
attack.
support 3-way SLI. I say if you can afford it, just buy 2 cards in SLI or 2 cards in Crossfire, and try to stay away from 3 cards because a lot of these games aren't working. Maybe if I had a higher resolution, like 2560 by 1600, then maybe I might see a little bit of a jump. But on these games, on Far Cry 3, I'm only seeing adding the 3rd card and 3-way SLI only gave me 20 to 30 frames per second average higher. And some of the other games, it's more, they give you more frames per second. Metro 2033 was a big performance boost, and Hitman Absolution was a big performance boost. Those games scale really good. Battlefield 3 did not scale that well. It scaled average, so. Yeah, so we're going to go in here and try to do this mission right now. You see there's a guy over
I'm
here.
coming.
And you see right there, see where the frames per second dropped? Oh, sorry, dog.
Lisa, I'm here!
Oh man, I'm out of ammo. Guess I'll have to knife this guy. Unless I can get his gun. Yeah, and there we go. So your frames per second did drop. I'm saying about, while recording, about 60, 62 frames per second average. But when I'm not playing, I'm getting way, way higher frames per second than this, about 75 to 85 frames per second. I don't think the game's fully optimized for 3 GPUs, but it does give you a little bit of a boost. I mean, it's nothing really crazy. And you can see right here, I'll shoot. Okay, so it's showing about 51, 55 frames per second average. If I shoot a gun here, oh, I'm out of ammunition. Let's see if I can find some ammo somewhere. I'm out of ammo. Okay, here we go. So if I shoot a gun right here, 52, 55, I shoot a gun right here. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, it's not too bad. You know, you can see my 1189 megahertz, 1176. The third graphics card is not being fully used. You can see the GPU core clock is lower than the other two. See, the 1189 megahertz, 1176, and then 1137. It's not fully optimized. It's not the GPU's Nvidia GPU boost technology will kick in when it's a very graphically demanding game and you need the extra, I guess, auto overclock on the graphics cards. And on this game, the third graphics card's barely being used, so it's actually kind of downclocking itself when not in use. So that's one thing about the Nvidia boost technology. And you see it's not too bad. So. No, I am using, like I said, 314.07 WHQL drivers. I did get a little bit of a performance boost using the 314.22 WHQL drivers, but even with those drivers, it wasn't fully supporting 3-way SLI all the way. I mean, the 3-way SLI is, I hate to say this, but it's almost like a gimmick. It's only for those crazy extreme PC guys who want to break records, and they want to, I almost get like, it's not micro stutter, but like, okay, I'll give you an example. Battlefield 3, when I run 2 EVGA 670 GTX for the wins, the game actually feels a lot smoother with the two graphics cards. With the third graphics card, I'm only getting maybe 20 to 30 frames per second higher, but it actually feels a little bit laggier, and it feels like I'm getting some kind of micro stutter, which is kind of hard to explain. Yeah, so it's almost like a gimmick. I say try to stay with 2 cards in SLI, and you'll be more happier in the long run. So, okay, right here, 50, 54, you can see the frames per second just dropping everywhere. Then I shoot my gun. It didn't drop that much. Let's shoot it here. Yeah, so it's not too bad. About 60 frames per second while recording. I tried using Bandicam software to record this with another software, and my frames per second just dropped dramatically. So MSI Afterburner, to me, in my testing, is the best program to use for gameplay recording. And it really, your frames per second is not that low compared to normally playing the game, especially like games like Battlefield 3. It scales pretty well, you know, when you're using MSI Afterburner while recording. It's not too bad. So I hope this gives you some kind of insight on the game and exactly how well it performs. I mean, it's not too bad. Really, I'd stick to only an SLI solution. You can see I'm driving the Jeep right here. Now, my benchmark run, when I ran fraps, all I did was do that first mission with the bore, and then I came back. And then that's where I stopped my fraps benchmark. So if you want to kind of benchmark this run too, and compare them with my video results, then just do the first level, and then come back, and then stop your benchmark right there, right when you meet up with the guy. And that's exactly what I did in here. So I hope this gives you some kind of insight. If you guys have any questions, if there's any other games you want me to run benchmarks, please tell me. I'll try to run some of the newer games. I'm going to try running Tomb Raider benchmark for you guys with some gameplay footage. And I will try to run, what's the other game? BioShock Infinite that just came out. And I'll try running some Resident Evil 6 that just came out. I think Resident Evil 6 is only DirectX 9, so it's not DirectX 11 technology, but I mean, it doesn't look too bad. So thank you guys so much for watching, and have a nice day.